Good evening, professionals. In our sixth corporate law webinar series, dealing with all the recent updates in Companies Act and other corporate laws, today we are going to deal with one important provision under Companies Act, under SEBI LODR, and the Indian Accounting Standards, which is related party transaction. We are also going to deal in alignment with our series of webinars, providing the recent updates on the corporate laws. We are going to include the latest provisions under Companies Act and also SEBI LODR. Today we are going to deal with this subject under 4 buckets. First, we are going to discuss about Companies Act. In bucket 2, we are going to discuss about SEBI LODR, where Reg 23 we will discuss in detail. And what are the key amendments brought in Reg 23? In the third bucket, we are going to discuss about Ind AS, where we all are aware that Ind AS was made applicable after NCA notified during the year 2015, and it was made to be implemented in a phased manner depending upon the net worth and the listing criterion for the companies. Where phase 1, we had all the entities, whether listed or unlisted, with a net worth of over and above 500 crores, effective 1st April 16. Then we had phase 2, where we had all the companies listed or to be listed and where the net worth is exceeding 250 crores but less than 500 crores. And phase 3, where we had all the banks, NBFCs, insurance companies. And finally, we had phase 4 for the companies, NBFCs with net worth over and above 250 crores, which was implemented effective 1st April 2019. And finally, the fourth bucket, we are going to discuss about IGAAP, AS 18, where it deals with related party transaction. While reviewing these provisions, we will also understand the governing provisions and also the comparative analysis of how it is presented under each provision. Friends, we all know that it is important. This subject matter is important for students, professionals, consultants, shareholders, because they have the authority for approving such transactions, board members, because for violation of this provision, the consequence is very severe, which ranges from 25,000 to 5 lakhs, and also, very importantly, it has the disqualification provision, which is invoked under section 164(1)(g). Having said that, we will deal with the provision on related party transactions with statutory compliance requirements and the disclosure norms today. My sincere thanks to Mr. Sundar for this presentation. These are the legends used in today's presentation. We already discussed that we are going to deal with it in 4 buckets. First, provision under Companies Act. So we all know that the provisions are under section 177 and 188 of Companies Act, where the key provisions are in chapter 12, where it deals with the company's meetings of board and its powers. First, let's understand the specifications of definitions. What do you mean by related party? Section 2, subsection 76 says that related party means a director or his relative, a key managerial personnel or his relative, a firm in which director, manager or relative is a partner, a private company in which a director or manager or his relative is a member or director. This or was earlier and when the act was notified, then by company's rectification order passed during July 2014, we had this liberal enactment of or. Likewise, in public company also, instead of and it was or, which made it applicable for many public companies. So then they, why this ROD rectification order, they made this provision as and, which is a twin criterion to be fulfilled by a public company. He shall be a director or manager and hold along with his relatives more than 2% of the paid up capital. So whereas when the act was notified, it was or, which means a director or holding the shareholding percentage of more than 2%, which makes it applicable even if he is not holding any shareholding in the company. Any body corporate whose board is accustomed to act in accordance with the advice, directions, or instructions of a director or manager. We all are aware that SEBI, the case of Sahara India, where Subrata Rao Sahara was holding 70% of stake, but he was not a director. Nonetheless, the board, the body corporate was construed to be accustomed to act, and hence SEBI declared that here, this body corporate is accustomed to act in accordance with the directions of Subrata Roy. Any person on whose advice, directions, or instructions a director or manager is accustomed to act likewise. There is a relief, however, that these two provisions are not applicable if such advice or directions are given in professional capacity. So consultants, if they are directors and if they are going to render their professional advice, then this will not fall within this related party ambit. Any body corporate, which is a holding subsidiary or associate company of such company, subsidiary of a holding company to which it is also a subsidiary, which means your co-subsidiary, fellow subsidiary as we call it, investing company or venturer of a company. This last subline investing company venture was introduced by Companies Amendment Act 2017 effective 7th May 2018. And MCA, by its notification dated 5th June 2015, made it clear that this is exempt for private company, which means 8, 2 subsection 76, subclause 8 is not applicable to private companies. Investing company, as an explanation, they have said that a body corporate where investment in the company would result in the company becoming an associate company of the body corporate. Which is an associate company? Again, you have to draw reference to section 2, subsection 6 of Companies Act, where there is exercise of significant influence or holding 20% or more of the voting power. A director or KMP of the holding company or his relative, where director of course excludes independent director. Then the definition is on relatives. Relative with reference to any person according to section 2 subsection 76 read with your rule 4 of company specification of definition details rules clearly says that HUF, spouse, father, mother, son, son's wife, daughter, daughter's husband, including stepfather, mother, brother, sister, including stepbrother, sister, will be construed as relatives. So the definition is thankfully exhaustive. We all discussed 177, 188 or the governing provisions under the Companies Act, read with Rule 6A and Rule 50 of Chapter 12. Let's try to understand Section 177, which talks about your audit committee, where subsection 4 draws reference to the TO or terms of reference as we call it. Every audit committee shall act in accordance with the terms of reference, which includes several matters like your financials, auditors, scrutiny of intercorporate loans or investments, valuation, amongst which one key provision is the subject matter which we are discussing, which is your RPT, approval or any subsequent modification of related party transactions. Approval is a fresh approval or omnibus approval or subsequent approvals or any subsequent modification. You have already given approval for a transaction, say 50 lakhs, with regard to any loans or advances to your related party, and what if there is an enhancement in between, then you are going for subsequent modification to the existing approval granted by audit committee. Audit committee may make omnibus approval for related party transactions proposed to be entered by the company. Subject to such conditions as prescribed in Rule 6A, we will be dealing with Rule 6A in the subsequent slide. In case of transaction, other than transaction referred to in section 188, where we all know that 188 clearly talks about your office or place of profit selling or disposing of the whole or part of the undertaking, and all other matters under section specific matters as specified in 188, where audit committee does not approve such transaction, it shall be recommended to the board. In case of any transaction where the amount involved is not exceeding 1 crore, it is entered into by a director or officer. What if such transaction is entered into without obtaining approval of audit committee? And if it is not ratified within 3 months from the date of such transaction being entered into, then it is voidable at the option of audit committee. And if the transaction is with the related party to any director or is authorized by the director, then the director shall be liable to indemnify with regard to any loss incurred. Section 177, subsection 4, clause 4, which talks about your related party transaction approval or modification, will not apply for a transaction between a holding company and its wholly owned subsidiary company. So there is thankfully an exception to it. Rule 6A, because audit committee may make omnibus approval as per the rule which is prescribed under Rule 6A. All related party transactions shall require approval of audit committee, and audit committee may make omnibus approval for such related party transactions. If you see the provision of Rule 6A, friends, let's try to compare it with SEBI LODR. SEBI LODR was notified on 2nd September 2015, making it applicable from the 90th day from the date when this particular notification was done. This came into effect earlier, and Rule 6A has majority of the provisions lifted from SEBI LODR, making it in alignment with SEBI LODR, like the conditions, the approval of transaction for 1 crore, and the validity of such omnibus approval, which is your blanket approval which is taken for 1 year, considering the related party transactions which you will be entering into over a period of 1 year. So the validity of this is 1 year, both in the case of Companies Act and SEBI LODR, and the matters to be disclosed to your audit committee with regard to omnibus approval being taken are almost the same. So we will see the distinguishment between these two while we deal with SEBI LODR. But these are the common parameters. Conditions to be satisfied for making omnibus approval are: audit committee, after obtaining the approval of board, shall specify the criteria for giving this omnibus approval, which includes the maximum value of transaction in aggregate, and individual transaction which could be allowed, and the extent and manner of disclosures to be made to audit committee shall be clearly drawn reference to, and the periodic intervals at which the audit committee may take stock of this particular approval which is granted. Here there is a difference, because there it is clearly stated in SEBI LODR that it is quarterly review which shall happen to the audit committee. Here it says review at such intervals as the audit committee may deem fit. Transactions which cannot be subject to approval by omnibus approval by the audit committee. So these are specific matters. An audit committee, while considering this factor of granting omnibus approval, shall take into consideration the repetitiveness of transactions. So if they are frequent in nature, it is more likely that omnibus approval will be most appropriate in that particular transaction. And justification, the rationale behind obtaining this particular omnibus approval. And upon satisfying itself on the need for this omnibus approval for a transaction of its likely nature of repetition, audit committee, if in the interest of the company, may grant approval for such blanket approval for 1 year. Omnibus approval shall indicate the following: name of the related party, nature and duration of the transaction. Say for example, if you are going for the loans or advances, and the name of the related party, if it is a subsidiary, you already saw that not for wholly owned subsidiary, be it an associate or subsidiary company, and nature and duration of transaction. So if it is going to be the loans and advances for a period of 6 months, you will be stating that the maximum amount of transaction, say if it is 50 lakhs, you will indicate that the base price or the contract price and the formula for variation in the price shall be indicated, and any other information which is relevant. So what are the terms upon which such particular loan or investment or advances are being granted shall be stated therein. And where the need for RPT cannot be foreseen and aforesaid details are not available, audit committee may make an omnibus approval for a value not exceeding 1 crore with regard to such transactions. And we already discussed that this omnibus approval shall be valid for a period of 1 financial year. And every year you have to place it to the audit committee for fresh approval, preferably during the beginning of the financial year itself. So in the first financial year, when you take on record the disclosures under 184, you will also take an approval for the audit committee omnibus approval transactions. It shall not be made with regard to selling or disposing an undertaking of the company, and any other condition as the audit committee may deem fit may also be considered for this omnibus approval, which shall be provided by the audit committee. Then we are going to discuss about the another charging provision, which is section 188. A company shall not enter into any contract or arrangement with a related party unless A. Approval is obtained from the board of directors by way of a resolution passed at a meeting of the board and conditions prescribed in Rule 15 are complied. The specified related party transactions as provided in 188 are sale, purchase or supply of any goods or materials, selling or disposing of or buying property of any kind, leasing of property of any kind, availing or rendering of services, appointment of agent with regard to purchase or sale of goods materials, and with regard to appointment in an office or place of profit. We will discuss in the next slide about what is construed as an office or place of profit in terms of director or in terms of persons other than directors, and underwriting with regard to subscription of any securities or derivatives thereof. Office or place of profit, which is for a director, will be anything by way of remuneration over and above the remuneration which is already approved by the board or by the shareholders by way of fee, commission, salary, perquisite accommodation, as the case may be. But if you notice, for any other person other than a director, it also includes remuneration, which means if an individual firm, private company or body corporate holding it receives anything by way of remuneration also, including all other components, it will be construed as an office or place of profit, where you have to satisfy the criterion as prescribed under 188. If not, you have to go for prior approval of members. In case of companies crossing the monetary threshold as prescribed with regard to our related party transactions, they shall be entered into only with the prior approval of members. What are they? So with regard to sale, purchase or supply of goods or materials or for appointment of agent, the limit is 10% or more of the turnover. So if you're going to exceed that limit, then you have to go for specific prior approval of members. And with regard to selling or disposing of or buying the property of any kind, it is 10% or more of the net worth of the company. With regard to leasing of property, it is 10% or more of the turnover of the company. And for rendering or availing of any services, it is 10% or more of the turnover of the company. And it is imperative to note that the above limits shall be reckoned with regard to the previous transaction done during the previous financial year. So, during the financial year, if there is already any transaction plus fresh transaction is being entered into, you have to add both to consider this particular limit. And with regard to office or place of profit, where the monthly remuneration is exceeding 2.5 lakhs, you may have to come under the specific approval of members. Remuneration for underwriting the subscription of securities where it exceeds more than 1% of the net worth. In case of wholly owned subsidiary, there is a breathing relaxation provided that if the holding company is going to take approval, it is sufficient, and wholly owned subsidiary need not again take a specific approval from the members. And the material facts shall be placed in your explanatory statement, which shall contain the name of the related party, the name of the director or KMP, the nature of such transaction, the material terms, monetary value, and any other relevant information which will be helpful for the shareholders to approve this transaction. Who are ineligible to vote? This is very important, friends, because this differs from your SEBI LODR. No member shall vote on such resolution to approve any contract or arrangement which may be entered into by the company if such member is a related party. There is a clarification given by MCA post this particular notification in July 2014, which clearly says that related party shall be construed with reference to the contract or arrangement for which the resolution is being passed. If you try to understand what is an arrangement, Bank of India case clearly defined arrangement as an agreement or understanding between the parties concerned. So going by that definition, related party here in this context will be for the contract or arrangement for which the resolution is being passed. Whereas in the case of SEBI LODR, if the related party is part of the transaction, he shall not be entitled to vote for the contract or arrangement, even if that particular resolution is over and above that particular transaction to which the matter is sought for approval. Hence, the LODR provisions are wide than your Companies Act provision. And first proviso to section 188 is not applicable in the following cases where there is a transaction entered into between your holding company and its wholly owned subsidiary company, or where the transaction is entered into by the government company, where government company again draws reference to your section 2 subsection 45 of the Companies Act, where more than 50% of the shareholding is held by central government, state government, or partly by central and state government in such companies, and government company other than a listed company where such contract is being approved by the Ministry or Department of Central Government or State Government with whom such contract or arrangement is being entered into. And second proviso is not applicable again in the case of government companies, like how we discussed for the first proviso, the same provisions get extended to your second proviso as well, and your private company and specified IFSC public companies, private company by virtue of your 2015 notification, and specified IFSC public companies by virtue of notification drawn on 4 January 2017, and companies in which 90% or more members in number or relatives of promoters or related parties. This is very important, friends. 188 is, however, not applicable if you're going to satisfy twin conditions. What are they? One, if it is in ordinary course of business. Or another condition is if it is on arm's length basis. It is not or, actually, twin conditions you have to cumulatively satisfy. So in the ordinary course of business. So what do you mean by in the ordinary course of business? Is it defined? No, it is not defined. You have to draw reference from the judicial precedents only, where in BNP Paribas case, Karnataka High Court clearly held that ordinary course of business means in the interest of business, and it is happening during the course of business and not on an arm's length basis. So if it is, what is on an arm's length basis? Again, it is not defined, but if you read Blacklaw's dictionary, it clearly says that where there is a transaction which is entered into by people who are not related or who are not closely connected, then the transaction will be at a value which is negotiated between both the parties. And Ramnath Iyer's dictionary, lexicon dictionary, also refers to the same and says that where there is a transaction which is entered into by parties who are not related, and they will have equal bargaining power, and there they will take reference to the fair market value as applicable. So we have to take reference from all these legal dictionaries and the judicial precedents with regard to ordinary course of business and arm's length basis. Every contract shall be referred to in the board's report to the shareholder along with a justification for entering into such contract or arrangement. And where a contract is entered into by a director or any other employee without obtaining the consent of the board or approval of the resolution passed by the shareholders, and if it is not ratified within 3 months, similar to your audit committee approval as under section 177, here it is voidable at the option of the board. And if it is with a related party who is involved with the director, then the director shall indemnify. And without prejudice to the above provisions, company shall proceed against a director or any other employee who has entered into a contract or arrangement in contravention of the provisions. And as we discussed earlier, the punishment for this particular contravention will be fine ranging from 25,000 to 5 lakhs, and the disqualification under section 164 1G will also be applicable. An agenda of your board meeting where you are going to take approval for this transaction shall also have all the details as discussed earlier, like the name of the related party, the nature, duration of the contract, the justification for the price, and other terms and conditions which will be deemed fit. And there is a clarification given via MCA Circular 17 July 2014 that with regard to any contract which is entered into by virtue of a compromise or arrangement, then this related party will not squarely fall within that ambit. 184 subsection 2 talks about your disclosure of interest to be made by a director in a contract or arrangement or proposed contract or arrangement to be entered into when with a body corporate in which such director in association with any other director is going to hold more than 2% of shareholding of that body corporate, or is a promoter, manager or CEO of that body corporate, or with a firm or other entity in which such director is a partner, owner or member as the case may be. He shall disclose the nature of his concern or interest at the meeting of the board in which such contract or arrangement is being discussed and shall not participate in the meeting, which is very important. Or at the time of entering into the contract, if he was not interested, but subsequently when he becomes interested in such particular contract or arrangement, then he shall disclose in the first meeting of the board held after he becomes so interested in such contract or arrangement. However, there are exceptions to it. Private company, there is an exception that the interested director may participate in such meetings by disclosing his nature of interest or concern. Section 8 company only with regard to the transaction with reference to 188 on the basis of terms and conditions of such contract which exceeds 1 lakh. With regard to which 184 disclosure of interest shall be applicable. For specified IFSC public companies, likewise, you have the exception. (134) Board's report shall disclose the particulars of such contract or arrangement with the related parties, and the prescribed form is Form AOC 2. And please note, friends, it is with regard to those transactions where you are not going to satisfy the asset test of in the ordinary course of business or on an arm's length basis. And maintenance of register under 189 read with Rule 16, where every company shall maintain one or more such registers in MBP 4, where you shall disclose the contract or arrangement pursuant to section 184(2) and the contracts to which RPT shall apply and squarely falls within the ambit of section 188. Again, there is an exception provided to section 8 companies there. Now let's discuss about SEBI LODR provisions. Related party here again draws reference to your 2 subsection 76 only, which we discussed. Along with that, there is additional provision in LODR which makes it wider, which says that any person or entity belonging to the promoter or promoter group and holding 20% or more of the shareholding will also be deemed to be a related party. And with regard to relative, again, it draws reference to your 2 subsection 77 of the Companies Act. With regard to related party transaction, again the scope is wide in SEBI LODR, friends, because here it talks about transfer of resources, services, obligation between a listed entity and a related party, regardless of price being charged. So, irrespective of the price which is charged, where there is a transfer of resource, service or obligation, then it will squarely fall within the ambit of RPT. Over and above this, it shall be considered as a related party for a single transaction or group of transactions. Rec 23, which is the governing provision for RPT, all the listed entities shall formulate a policy on related party transaction. Materiality of related party transaction. Materiality, again, with reference to clear threshold limits duly approved by the board of directors. So the clear threshold limits is a recent introduction with effect from 1st April 2019, and it also made it specific that this policy shall be reviewed at least once in every 3 years by the board of directors, which is again an amendment effective 1st April 2019. What is the material RPT? Where the threshold clearly says 10% or more of the annual consolidated turnover of the company. So consolidated again draws reference to your CFS, consolidated financial statements. Material RPT with regard to brand usage or royalty, again an insertion effective 1st April 2019. There the threshold is for royalty brand usage. Earlier it was 2%. After this introduction in 2019, but This was substituted to 5% effective 29th of 27th of June 2019. And all related party transactions shall require prior approval of audit committee. And all these omnibus approvals and the name, related party, and the periodicity of approval, which shall be valid for 1 year, everything is quite similar to your provisions under Companies Act. And all material RPT shall require approval of the shareholders through resolution, and no related party shall vote to approve such resolutions whether the entity is a related party to the transaction or not. So this is what we discussed while reviewing the provisions of 177 and 188. Here it is even more strict and stringent. And this particular provision shall not apply with regard to resolution plan approved under section 31 of Insolvency Code, which was introduced during the year 2018. So 31st May 2018, they have made an exception to this particular provision not being applicable to resolution plan approved under IPC. And these provisions, quite similar to your Companies Act provision, not applicable to holding and wholly owned subsidiary companies and government companies. Again, all these provisions are similar to your Companies Act. It shall be applicable to all prospective transactions and regulations. We saw that it was notified on 2nd September 2015. And 23, Sub-Regulation 9 was introduced in 2019, where it clearly said that listed entities shall submit within 30 days from the date of publication of its standalone and consolidated financial results for the half year disclosures of RPT on a consolidated basis in the format specified in the accounting standards for annual results to the stock exchange and publish the same on website. So this half-yearly RPT compliance was made effective half year ending 31st March 2019. And there are several other disclosure requirements, like in your corporate governance disclosure, you have to provide a quarterly compliance along with various other matters about your material transaction with related party transactions. And you shall post this particular policy which you have obtained approval from the board of directors on your website, and the annual report shall also contain the related party disclosures with regard to the matters as specified in Ind AS. And now we are going to discuss about Ind AS 24, where control is defined under Ind AS 110, which says an investor controls an investee when the investor has three options which are available under Ind AS 110. What are they? One, has rights to variable returns like your dividend from its involvement with the investee, and has the ability to affect those returns, and through what? He has ability to affect those returns because of his voting right and through its power over the investee. So if he has an affirmative voting and the investor is going to establish his control, then he is said to have control over the investee company. What do you mean by joint control? Ind AS 111 defines joint control as contractually agreed sharing of control of an arrangement which exists only when the decision about the relevant activities require the unanimous consent of both the parties. You will typically see this in joint venture agreements where 50-50 approval will be required from both the parties to make the transaction valid. And significant influence, Ind AS 24, AS 18 draws reference to significant influence in the same manner, which says power to participate in the financial operating decisions of the investee company. That itself is sufficient without having any control or joint control on the policy. So participation in the financial or operating policy of the decisions itself will suffice the requirement. So related party is a person or entity that is related to the entity that is preparing its financial statement. So person or close member of the person's family member in relation to the reporting entity will be one, having control, two, having joint control over the reporting entity, three, having significant influence over the reporting entity. So we saw who will have control or joint control or exercise significant influence as the case may be. Finally, it also says a member of key management personnel of the reporting entity. So who is a key management personnel? A person who takes the decisions. So who is planning, controlling the activities of the reporting enterprise Again, the definition for key management personnel is almost the same in Ind AS and AS 18, where additionally Ind AS also draws reference to this particular KMP also having control over the activities and the director of this reporting enterprise, where in AS 18 it had reference only to the activities of the reporting entity. An entity is related to a reporting entity if any of the following conditions apply. Entity and reporting entity are members of the same group, be it a parent or subsidiary or fellow subsidiaries as the case may be, or associate or joint venture, or both or joint ventures of the same third party, or one entity is a joint venture of a third party and other entity is an associate. So JV, combination of JV and associate, an entity which is controlled or jointly controlled by a person identified in A. So person identified in A being person who is establishing control or joint control or exercising significant influence. And person identified in A1, which means the person who has control exercises significant influence over the entity or is a member of the KMP of that entity. An entity or any member of the group of which it is a part provides key management personnel the services to the reporting entity or to the parent of the reporting entity. Again, RPT, the definition is almost the same in LODR, Ind AS 24 and AS 18, which is transfer of resources, service or obligation regardless of the price. And disclosures, the relationship between a parent and subsidiary shall be disclosed. This is quite significant to note, friends. So irrespective of any related party transaction, the scope is wider to say that even if there is a relationship between a parent and subsidiary, the same shall be disclosed in your Ind AS 24, and whether it is immaterial whether there is a transaction or not. And an entity shall disclose the name of its parent, and if different, if they have another person, the ultimate controlling entity, which is the common holding company for both, shall be stated. And third one is interesting. So if the consolidated financials of the parent company is not in public use, which means it is not a listed entity and it is not in the public domain, and then the next most senior parent whose CFS shall be disclosed so that it is transparent to all the shareholders. And key management personnel's compensation in total under each subcategory, be it a short-term employment benefit or long-term employment benefit, stock option plan, everything shall be completely disclosed. If an entity has RPT during the period covered by the financial statement, again like your LODR, you shall provide the details of your nature of related party transaction, but the scope is again wide in Ind AS 24, friends, because it draws reference to outstanding balances to understand the potential impact on the financial statement. And disclosure shall include your future commitments, outstanding balances with regard to the related party transaction that is entered into, the provision for bad and doubtful debts with regard to the amount of outstanding balance, and if there is an expense recognized during the period of bad or doubtful debts due from related party, the same shall be stated therein. RPT under AS 18, the definitions will be quite similar to what we discussed in Ind AS, but Note 3, which is a charging provision, clearly says that related party relationship shall fall under any of these 5 categories. One, which is control or common control, which is nothing but your Ind AS 24 point number 1, holding, subsidiary or fellow subsidiaries. Associate, joint venture and investing party or venturer. Now we understand that this particular provision is lifted and brought in your 2 subsection 76(8), where Companies Amendment Act amended the provision of body corporate to include investing party or venturer, in respect of which the reporting enterprise is an associate or joint venture. So now you will understand why such particular insertion was made in Companies Act to be in alignment with AS18. And individuals owning directly or indirectly an interest in the voting power of the reporting enterprise by virtue of your shareholding. KMPs, relatives of individual. Again, we already discussed about the provision of who is a key management personnel, which is quite similar to your Ind AS 24, barring the director's control, and enterprises over which any person in C or D are able to exercise significant influence. Again, significant influence, the definition is the same in Ind AS 24 and AS 18. So, control is ownership of more than one half of the total voting power, which is more than 50%, or controlling the composition of the board of directors, or substantial interest in the voting power by virtue of a statute or agreement, be it your shareholders agreement or subscription agreement that you enter into, or JV agreement enter. Related party transaction, the definition is the same in LODR, Ind AS 24 and AS 18. The various disclosures are again similar to your Ind AS 24, where it not only deals with your nature of transaction, name, description of relationship between the parties, it also extends to your outstanding balance and the provision with regard to doubtful debts with regard to such outstanding balance with the related party transactions which are being entered into. And of course, it provides a leeway that items of similar nature may be disclosed in an aggregate in your related party transaction disclosures, and except where specific disclosure or separate disclosure is necessary with regard to understanding of such related party transactions in the financial statement, the same shall be separately disclosed. Otherwise, cumulative reporting is well and good. Thank you very much, friends. Take care. Stay safe.